All right. Hey guys, welcome back to another Fireside chat. Today, I hope your day is going okay. I'm joined today by a guy that I've been talking to for a while since we started Booktube, pretty much started around the same time, and we've just connected and we've wanted to do this for a while. So, Cal, how's it going, man? Thanks for
Going
joining me,
great,
dude.
Theo.
All right, cool. So I normally would ask you, I think what we'll do is normally I'd ask you to just introduce your channel a little bit, tell us a little bit about where we can find you and kind of but I know that your channel has kind of evolved and changed a bit. You have a big presence on Instagram. So
hmm
maybe tell us where we can find you and what your channel's all about these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Theo, thanks for having me on. I know it's been
Yeah,
a
man.
while. We've been
Yeah.
trying to be on together and stuff. So, no, it's great. Yeah, my name's Cal. Channel's Cover to Cover Cal, as you can see from the label underneath me. Um, Funniest thing is, Cal's not my full name. My full name's actually Callan. I go by Cal. You can call me Callan, whatever.
Nice.
Growing up
I was
was like,
wondering what it was short for. I'm
yeah,
like
and like
Calvin, Callum,
yeah, and
Callan.
there's not a
Yeah.
lot of Callens. Like I met a couple. We're going off a little topic here, but I met like two Callens in my life, and never spelled because I spelled Calan,
Right.
and I've met a couple in my life, but yeah, it's a rarity. But
Yeah,
yeah,
right on.
so I think it flowed better with just like cover to cover Cal,
I
because
love it. I
so
love it.
much.
So you started as a booktube channel, right? Like that's how we connected. It was all books, right? At the time.
Absolutely, yeah. Books was
Yeah.
like because I started getting really heavy into reading, and this was like um pre-COVID. So it wasn't like when like because everyone like once COVID hit, everyone was just like face was in a book. Like
What are we gonna do? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
So
exactly.
no, mine was like pre-COVID, and that's when I got really into like what, I gotta finish like because Stephen King, my all-time favorite author. Because for
We'll
everyone who
get to
doesn't know
that.
me,
We'll get to that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm a big horror fan. I love horror. It's my favorite
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah.
And yeah, I started like I gotta read all of his, and like I literally, like I said, read all of his stuff chronological order. And obviously, if you follow me or you will see on my channel, I made a tier list. That's like my longest video. It's like an hour long, and
Yeah.
I go through all of his books and stuff. So yeah, there's that. And yeah, I started off as a booktube, and yeah, I've been over. How long have you had a channel? Like it's because we're around the same time.
Yeah. Honestly, April 9th was 1 year for me, which is
Mine was
nuts.
yeah, mine was like shortly after. It was like I think mine was like May. I could be wrong, but like yeah,
Yeah.
it was around the same time though.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
is. And yeah, started as a booktube, got really into just being books and like just talking about it, reaching out. Yeah, with my Instagram, it's the same name, cover to cover Cal on Instagram. Amazing like Bookstagram community. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
they're
Because you've got a couple thousand followers on Instagram, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah, like
Yeah.
2,300 and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome.
it's just a great way to reach out, and I've met some amazing people.
Yeah.
And thanks, Christopher. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, it's just been a whole like journey, basically. Meeting these people, talking to them. I met some amazing people,
It's crazy,
and
right? Yeah. It's cool. It's
yeah,
cool.
and then now I started dabbling my toes in like the music reaction videos, and like
Yeah.
um a lot of me. I mean, you probably can't see it. Guitar tattoos, music notes on my arm. Like music's a huge part of my life, and like
Yeah.
I don't know why in the hell I didn't start that like with my
So
book.
you wanted to blend the channel a bit, right? That's always a thing when you start a YouTube channel is like I have these passions. Like I have other hobbies. I have other things. I've thought about making other channels. But like what do you choose? And do you drill down and find a niche or do you blend some stuff? So I kind of like how you're blending, books and not only just books, but reading and writing as well. You were giving us writing updates. You've written a book actually that came out last year. Was it
Mhm.
this year or last year already?
Yeah, last year I wrote it last
End of
summer.
last year, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you were posting on not so much YouTube, but on Instagram, and you were posting like chapter updates, and you're like, oh, I've written this many words and I've written this many chapters. And you went, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you went like start to finish. Like I
Yeah.
literally saw you on Instagram write this book. It was like boom, chapter, boom, boom, chapter, boom, chapter. And then you were like, oh, I'm done. It's being published. I'm like, what? Like how? How long did it take to write? Tell us about
So
your book. Give us a pitch.
yeah,
Because
so
I'm
here's
getting one in the
here's
mail.
the
I
book
bought
right
one.
here.
I
My
forced you to
next door
sign it.
possession. Yeah,
Yeah.
so and I'll show it a little bit later too. Yeah, so it all started with a thought. You know, that's I feel like how like I'm an amateur. It's like I'm the rookie getting drafted. That's like my sports
Right.
analogy. Like I'm an
Okay.
amateur writer. So first book, it's my only book out, and yeah. So last summer, um, after done teaching, wanted to enjoy the summer, but then there's this little niche in me. I'm like, you know what? I want to write a book. Like I see people doing it, and you know, Stephen King again, a big influence for me for my horror novel, and just thinking about it was like I was not to like joke about the book, but the obsession, like I was obsessing up thinking about it. Like I couldn't stop thinking about writing a book.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Right.
I got to start it at least and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, summer. Let's see, I started basically right when I got on summer break. It was like June.
Yeah.
June.
'Cause you're a
5th.
teacher, right? So you had summer to kind of plow through this thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spent the whole goddamn summer, you know,
Yeah.
writing this book. But
Yeah.
yeah, June 5th, wrote it, and then the ending August, like mid-August, I finished it.
Okay.
And
Okay. Damn.
hey,
That's
Anthony,
crazy.
thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, so like here's my whole schedule. Like the whole summer. I mean, I did some other things here and there, but
Yeah.
I mostly
Sure.
just like churned out pages writing this thing. As
I
far as
remember. It's crazy.
it got published so
Yeah.
like so quick and stuff. And so wake up, you know, it's my morning routine. Wake up, make a smoothie, big into smoothies. I don't drink coffee, so FYI.
Okay.
So.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. You're missing out, man.
I mean,
No,
no,
some people just don't,
I'm not
right?
getting
Yeah.
into that, not going
Okay.
down that road and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I drink smoothies, get a smoothie, sit on my sectional, just nice and cozy, and then
Yeah.
yeah, so start with the prologue, going into that, and so my goal was to write 6 to 10 pages roughly
Okay.
per chapter. Okay.
Okay.
I
A
wasn't,
day.
yeah,
Right?
6
Yeah.
to 10 pages, yeah, per day. And
Okay.
sometimes on the weekend, I would write 2 chapters, which was like, that took a lot out of me. And the whole summer took a lot out of me. It was all worth it. Like I wouldn't change it for the world, but 6 to 10 pages. I wasn't
It's
worried
crazy.
about, I wasn't worrying about the word count until I gave, you know, the update on Instagram.
Right. Right.
Yeah, 6 to 10 pages. And then I just kept doing that every day, every single day. Maybe I might have took a couple breaks, like a day where
It's crazy how you plowed through this thing. Like it's a lot of people are probably, you know, wish that they could do that. Cause it's tough. Were you reading during this whole time? Were you still a constant reader through this whole
yeah.
thing, or did you take a little bit of a break, or
No,
you
I
were
was
reading too?
reading. Yeah, like I would have like there's a side table right over there by my couch, and like I just have my stack of books that I'm reading right there. And then once I'm done, so like after I got done writing the 6 to 10 pages, you know, the way I kind of mellowed out, and this goes back to music, is I go for a nice long walk, pop my AirPods in, and just like relax, listen to music and stuff. And I took a little kind of like inspiration from Stephen King. For those who are Stephen King fans, he would go for long walks to kind of like, you know, clear his head, and then like that's how like
Yeah.
good writing would come to him, because he's just walking and stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, trying to clear
Except that one time where that walk didn't turn out very well for him.
yeah, and then
Not good times.
no, it isn't. And that's interesting too, and we can talk about that later, how it totally changed like his whole narrative of like how he wrote and stuff. But yeah, I went for a walk, came back, and then yeah, I was still doing like yard work here and there, and like
Yeah.
so
Still
I was,
living
like,
life.
yeah, I was like drained.
That's
though. Like,
awesome.
yeah, it was like I would never change it for the world. Like I'm so glad like to have like
That's
my
awesome.
name, have a name on a book. It just
It must be a cool feeling. I've
Yeah.
I've romanticized the idea, but I'm not a writer. I have an okay command, I think, of the language and stuff, and I'm a bit of a linguist where I like language, and I used to speak French quite fluently actually, because I did that in school for a long time, and then I speak Greek mostly fluently. So I romanticize the idea of writing a book because I think that'd be so cool. How do you get past the thing where you're like, you know, have this idea and it's kind of a cool idea, but a lot of other people might have a similar idea and they'll probably write the better version of the book. Like, why should I do my version? Someone else could probably do a better job, right? Like, how do you overcome that? Like, no, like, let's just see. Like, let's just try it.
That's the thing. You have to like give it your all or try it, because like if you
Yeah.
just think about it, like it could have been like what could have been. It's like,
Right.
so
Yeah,
go
for
through
sure.
it and the
Just
process
do
of
it.
like, yeah. And like, that's the thing too, when people are writing, and like, I'm self-published. So like, I didn't go out there, and try to publish this like traditionally. Like, I actually self-published. That's,
You were just like, no, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to put it out there and whatever. Right.
well, that's like, because that's the crazy part of like the day we're living in right now in the world, like how you can just self-publish a book and
Yeah.
stuff. Like, so many people are doing it, and it's really convenient. It's really cool too. Now,
Yeah.
granted, there's like whole like the contract with Amazon and all that stuff, but
Of
like,
course. Yeah.
no,
Was it tricky? Like, was it tricky to get this thing done? Like, once you had a draft, once you had a final product, was it like jumping through hoops to get this thing published and out into Amazon, or was
yeah,
that kind of an easy part
there's some like, so like the writing, not gonna lie, was probably the easiest part.
to actually get it in
The
front of you?
writing
Right?
was the easiest part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and my good friend, shout out to Kelly. She was my editor, and she wanted to read
Nice.
my manuscript too. So like,
Cool.
she's a good friend of mine, and she's like, all right, I can't wait to read this. Like, give me it. And so like, she was inking it up with her pen and stuff. So like,
Nice.
she helped me, and then we like sat down together. We looked over the big parts, corrected the big parts together, and then I went through it, and like I changed like the grammatical errors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The book, I will say honestly, it's not perfect. Again, I'm an amateur,
Of course.
by all any means, but like the overall premise of it, like I'm very proud of. Like a lot of this I put in the book. I put a lot about my life into it.
Oh,
And
interesting. Okay.
yeah, so like,
Interesting.
I'm not gonna give like too many details, but like the
No.
stories taking place in a town called Northeast. So that's literally a town, Northeast.
Okay.
So that's the town, and then I give like roads. They're actually like actual street names in there. I give credit to my father in there, and then also my beloved mother who passed away in 2016. So
Oh, wow.
her name's in there, just kind of like a good memorial for her, and like
Yeah.
to have her name in there. So like a lot of touching emotional stuff. It was like there's parts in there like I was crying, like I'm not writing this stuff. Like,
Well, it's a cool thing, like when you do something like that and you inject a little bit of yourself, because not always do you do that as an author, but every now and then you probably do. Like, and King probably puts himself into some characters here and there, right?
mhm.
It's cool to see that stuff live on and have like in the future maybe your kids read the book and kind of get a sense of like what was going on at the time, or I mean, I don't know, get a little bit of a glimpse into you that they otherwise wouldn't. Like, I think that's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. Like, are you writing anything in the future? Are you writing more stuff? Like, are you planning to just be like, okay, that was a cool experience and leave it at that, or what?
So it's in my mind again. Like I want to
Yeah.
write again.
Yeah.
Again, for those who haven't looked at the book or anything, it's kind of a chunker. It's over 600 pages, and so the funny part about that, I didn't plan on writing 600 pages.
I wouldn't either, to be honest.
So
Yeah.
funny story. So here's how this all goes down. I'm writing
Yeah.
it. So Word document, writing it amateur style, just typing in Word, blah, 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 get it all done, get all set. And here's going back to, the tough part about publishing it. So after, Kelly and we edited it, and I edited it like a second time. I was thinking about getting a second eyes on it, but I'm like, come on, I want to publish this thing.
Right.
So what I did was for KDP, so that's Kindle Direct Publishing through Amazon. You have to make an account, obviously. You have to, agree to terms, blah, blah, all that, stuff. And so you make an account, and then a lot of the stuff, it's simple. Like, it's easy stuff. Like, you follow, like, it's a guide. Like, you follow all the way through it and stuff. Well, the tedious part was, I had to upload my manuscript. Okay, good enough. Well, and the book cover. So the book cover, I give credit to Gwen. I got her from an actual friend of Kelly's, because her friend works with Gwen to get her like covers done.
Oh, okay.
Stuff. So
Cool.
I got her, and I think she lives in like, forgive me if she's watching this, I don't know. I think she's like in Michigan, or she's in one of those states.
Right.
But no, so like when I was making it, I'd upload the cover, upload the manuscript, and then it gives you like an outline on it where like the pages have to be set in that line.
Right. Right.
If they're too big, then you have to trim them down and stuff.
Okay.
And that was okay because I got like the trim size down, but it was the margins. So like when you open a book and you have the spine right here. So
Right.
when you have this, and when you have to like open up so you can see the creases
Right.
and stuff, I had to get that like at a good precise stuff. And then like Knowing me, I'm an amateur. So apparently, if you ever read a book, odd numbers are the right-handed pages and even numbers are the left-handed pages. I never knew that until I started to publish this. So my formatting was kind of, whacked out and stuff. So I had to get kind of like a professional help to like fix the margins, fix the spine margins.
Right.
And then once all that got fixed, it was like, okay, it finally accepted my draft. So accepted my draft. And then, you got to do the pricing, all that stuff. And then you simply just hit publish. And within 24 to 48 hours to say, hey, your book's on Amazon. So.
Wow. That's nuts. And it turned out to be 600. So this is, what would you classify this? Like a horror suspense thriller?
Horror, psychological horror.
Psychological horror.
Yeah, there's some like dark stuff in here.
So what are some of your favorite authors? You mentioned King. I know you love King. King's a huge inspiration. What other authors inspire you, and where would you, if I want to get a glimpse into like your reading taste and get some recommendations, like where would I go? What authors would you recommend?
Yep, Stephen King. I can't go wrong with him. Number one. Yeah. It's gonna be hard to beat him. Like I'm reading and I'm branching out to new authors and stuff. And like,
have you read Robert McCammon?
I've read what I finished.
You read Swan Song, didn't you? No, Boy's Life.
No, what was it?
Boy's Life.
I have Swan Song on my TBR.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought you read Boy's Life. You read one of them, didn't you?
A thing you gotta know about me, Theo, is like I have OCD, and
okay.
I have like this thing where if I can't think, it's like if I can't think of a song, if I can't think of an actor,
you need to go find it.
I have to look it up. So
go for it. I need to know what you've tried.
Really
go for it. Go for it, please.
Yeah, no, Robert McCammon, he's a great author. Like I loved reading his it was some like book, and it's like they were down in the South.
That must be Boy's Life. Were they in Zephyr, Alabama, or something like that? And they
were like in Louisiana or something.
Yeah.
And
I read Swan Song, and that was one of my top books of last year. It was incredible. I loved Swan Song, and I want to read Boy's Life this year. Actually, soon. I might pick it up soon.
I watched your video on Swan Song and stuff.
Yeah. No, that was good. I want to read it, and he has a fantasy series too that I want to check out. But
Gone South.
Oh God! So it's interesting. So I actually got like an ebook pack. Yeah, that's right, Anthony. It was Gone South. Where were you like 5 seconds ago? Damn it, Anthony. No, but I got it in a pack, and I forget what it was called, but it was like a South like something themed pack, and it was Boy's Life, Gone South, and another one that Anthony might know. But it was 3, and so I have those. But I actually got gifted Boy's Life as a paperback, and which I prefer, and it's been staring me in the face, and I really want to get to it like very, very soon because I've heard it's incredible. So what did you think about Gone South? Did you get Stephen King vibes? Was it the type of story you enjoyed?
Yeah, so like it was an interesting, like I like relating to, and I try to branch out of my safety zone, or not my safety zone, my comfort zone.
Yeah, your comfort zone. Yeah.
And like I'll read fantasy from time to time. Like I'm a big Chronicles of Narnia fan. I love the Chronicles of Narnia. That's like my favorite. Hi, Kelly. So Gone South was great, and that, unfortunately that's the only one I've read, and I want to get to Swan Song. It's on my TBR, and I'm like one of those like I read in like kind of try to read in order of my TBR, and then there's some times where I'll get like a feel for a book, and I just
so do you plan? You're not like a mood reader. You like to plan structure stuff.
Yeah,
is that more your personality? Okay.
Probably because my OCD too. So that
gotcha. Yeah, cool.
No, there's like some rare times I will like think of a book. I'm like, that sounds really good. Like I like Stephen King for it. Like so, Holly's coming out in September. So like,
you'll fit it in, right?
Yeah, like whatever. Yeah. Like as soon as that comes out and I get it, I'm like, I'm reading that like before anything else. So
nice.
But yeah,
awesome.
And then so Stephen King, number one, and I love how we just trail off and then we have to come.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Some breadcrumbs we gotta leave.
That's what these are all about. Let's just.
I love it though. It's so great just to have
whatever happens. Yeah.
So Stephen King, number one. I read Dean Koontz too.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, so interesting. I even did a Dean Koontz video on my channel as well, and got a fair amount of likes for that one too, which is interesting. So Dean Koontz he's a great author, but he's like a hit or miss for me. Okay. So I noticed, and I was trying to do some research on him too. Like his best work, in my opinion, was like the books he got in like the late 80s to 90s ish. Okay, so that's like his bread and butter right there. And then anything before that was like, okay, good or eh. And then his newer stuff, like he's got a newer one out that's on my TBR, and like I read the past 2 newer ones he had, and they were like, they were okay, but like,
Okay.
no, but he's still a great author. It's just like a hit or miss. So it's like, trying to find a needle in a haystack with some of these books and trying to find.
Right. But when you like him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
He's got like his, and that's the thing too with reading all this and stuff and like making my book. It's like it enhanced my vocabulary like ridiculous.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
It sounds kind of redundant because if you read more, you get more fluid with your literacy. But yeah, and like Dean Koontz has like great like way he has great characters and stuff most of the time, like the good ones where I like to read. There's a book, it's my favorite book. It's called well, I'll probably have a brain fart right now because we're talking about
that's okay. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Is it Dean Koontz book?
Yeah, so
yeah.
Dean Koontz, and then The House of Thunder. So that's my favorite Dean Koontz book.
Okay.
It's really good. It's kind of like psychological horror and stuff, and no, that's a good one. So yeah, so Stephen King #1, Dean Koontz. I love Ray Bradbury. He's old fashioned.
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury's got a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
And then just like, and I'm reading like these like newer people, like I've read like Nick Cutter. He's like a newer.
Yeah, well, you and I both read The Troop, I think, right?
Oh,
that was a gnarly book. Yeah,
like
that was
it was
pretty good.
so twisted.
That was way better than I thought it was. Than I thought it would be, and I got super Stephen King vibes in that. That was actually really fun.
And he actually got credited by Stephen King saying like, this book will like scare the shit out of you. Like
that's right. That's right.
It's just it was so cool. Yeah, and I got like other people too, like I read and stuff. But yeah, so like top 3 is definitely King, Koontz, and like Ray Bradbury.
Cool. That's all. Ray Bradbury. I started with. I tried to read. I think it was last Halloween. Actually, it was 2 years ago. I tried to read. What is it? Something Wicked This Way Comes.
That's one.
I for some reason I just wasn't vibing with it, and I'm curious now looking back if it was the prose, because it's very poetic and it's very flowery.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I was in the mood for it. So I put it down. I wanted something more Halloween-y, more, although this is kind of a spooky kind of horror, whatever, it's really like kind of like mystical and like weird. And, it was not what I was in the mood for. So I put it down, and I've heard that his other books are all quite different. So like Fahrenheit 451 is written very differently than Something Wicked This Way Comes, apparently. So people were urging me like, no, you should try Bradbury, but if you didn't like that one, maybe try something else. So,
and that kind of gives me like the Dean Koontz vibe. Like he's a great writer.
Yeah,
like, he just could be kind of different stuff. And I read actually Fahrenheit 451 back in high school, so like that.
I've never read that, and I think that would be the next one that I'll try by Ray Brad. Have you read Dan Simmons? He's another one that I want to get to that I haven't read yet, but it seems like he'd be right up your alley.
Like again, they like suggest stuff on your Goodreads and stuff, and
he comes up probably a lot for you. Yeah. I wonder, Anthony, if you're around for a bit, let us know what we should start with if we wanted to try Dan Simmons, because I hear he gets kind of nuts. So if we want to start there, where should we start? That would be interesting. What are you reading right now? Like,
I am reading just started it actually this morning, Kill House.
Kill House.
Yeah, so it's
that sounds hectic.
it's newer-ish, I will say.
Yeah.
Kill Creek, excuse me.
Kill Creek. Okay.
Kill Creek by Scott Thomas.
Oh, sweet. Oh, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, so this I guess this is his only, or it's at least his first novel he wrote. He's like a newer, I don't want to say newer author, because again, like the book's like 2018, 2019.
Oh, okay, cool.
Like it's fairly new, but it's got an interesting premise to it. Like I mean, if I read the synopsis and I'm like hooked by it, and that's kind of another thing too, going back to mine, like I wanted to hook my readers with the synopsis, but also the title too. So we'll go back to the title in a second, but so overall, like premise of this book so far is it starts off talking about one author, so it's a book about an author, but it's actually about many authors. So one author.
This is your book. This is your book we're talking about, right?
No, this
is Kill. Okay.
Yeah, Kill Creek. So Kill Creek, we're talking about an author, and he joins up with 3 other authors. Like they're kind of like met in this meeting, but
Okay.
they weren't expecting each other. So it's like one of those random meetings that someone like makes the meeting. So they all get here and they meet up in this random place, and this guy is wanting them to go into the house at Kill Creek, and because it's like supposedly haunted, there's stuff going on there, pretty, supernatural stuff going on. So it's got a really good vibe to it. And like, yeah, once they I'm not too far in it right now, like they're in the house and stuff, and they just like got in the house. But each author has like a different, like they're all like kind of horror writers, horror authors, and they have like different, like definitely different personalities and stuff in it too. So like they're kind of like bouncing off each other. And I'm curious to see how this is going to play out through it, because you ever think about like how these characters are going to interact with each other? Like, they always start off bad, like they're like
Right.
they hate each other, and then go figure they're either get married or like they're best friends at the end of the book or something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. How far into it are you?
over 100 pages, 102.
Okay,
And like,
sweet.
and like literally the only time, like the only thing I remember is why I remember it's like specifically 102 is, again, I like to start, or I like to end. I try to like read 100 pages a day.
Okay, that's a pretty
So
good
like, yeah,
way to
so
be.
like, and
I'm
like
trying to do that. Yeah.
I get to work at like 6 a.m, so that's like my little time. And like us teachers, we don't have to be there till 7:35. But so I get there before like anyone. I get there when like all the custodian people get there. And
Right.
so I'm just in my office. I'll like read emails or something, but I'll read, have my time to myself. So yeah, catch up on that.
Nice.
And I mentioned this too in a lot of my videos, is like with reading, I listen to Audible. So every book I read, before I even like got into Audible, when I would read, I would listen to instrumental music. That's actually how I would study as well.
Interesting.
For my
Yeah,
undergrad. So I would study and I would listen to instrumental music, because there's that theory out there. If you listen to instrumental music, you kind of obtain the knowledge more.
I never used to listen. I never used to be able to listen to music while reading fiction. I used to listen to music while studying, and even a little bit of instrumental when I was doing academic stuff. But fiction, I needed silence, because in my head, I'm playing a movie. Like in my head, I'm just thinking about it, and I couldn't quite get that. But recently, I've started doing it, and it's actually kind of changed the game for me. When I listen to, or when I'm reading with my eyes, I have some like just ambience that like would work for like what I'm reading, right? Ambiance,
It's
whatever. You know what I
it's
mean?
Toronto.
So I play like for fantasy, I'll play something different if I'm reading something, and I try not to clash with like the scenes. I find if it's a really hectic battle and then it goes to like fairy, like like have a beer in the inn music, then I probably will switch it up, and it's actually helped a lot. I've enjoyed it
That's
a
interesting.
lot. Yeah, I never used to be able to do that, but recently I've started to. All depends on preference. Hyperion. Oh yeah, Hyperion. That's right. Summer of Night, a lot of people have read recently. I've heard a lot about that one, and I think I actually have the ebook for that one. Interesting. Summer of Night, I think, is the one that I would have tried. I'm not a huge sci-fi person, so I've passed on Hyperion to date, but that's good. Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate that, man. What's up,
Yeah.
Dylan? How's it going?
My last
Yeah, totally.
sci-fi was Jurassic Park. That was
Dude, Jurassic Park slaps. I
I
love
love
that
it.
book. So I actually think you would really like, because I don't know how into thriller. Well, I know you like thrillers, but I know you don't read a ton of sci-fi. I'm thinking you would really like Blake Crouch. Have you read Blake Crouch?
I've heard of.
Dark Matter,
Yeah.
Recursion, Wayward Pines. I think you'd really dig Blake Crouch, because he has kind of a sci-fi horror like thriller. What is it called? Not steampunk. What is it called? Like it's like a techno thriller. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it's billed as. But Wayward Pines gets kind of creepy and horror-ish.
I'll
So
add
I
to
think
my-
you'd really like him.
I'll add to my
Yeah.
TBR, definitely.
Give it a shot.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what did you think about Jurassic Park, the book? You liked it?
Yeah, like, and it's a cool thing too is like, if you read obviously if you see the movie before you read the book, it's, again, you're always comparing whichever is better, the book or the movie.
Yeah, they're both
But,
both awesome. in
Yeah,
this
no, they
case,
are.
but
Like Jurassic
very
Park,
different.
Jurassic
Yeah.
Park's the movies, before we get to the book, it was ahead of their time. Like what
Yeah,
they did
yeah.
is just incredible. And I actually watched documentaries on it and stuff too. It was really
Yeah.
cool. The book though, yeah, I'm just visualizing the characters from the movies in my head. And that helps
Right?
me, like that helps
Yeah.
me so much. Like,
And the dinosaurs, because like it kind of helps to picture them because who knows, right? Like,
Yeah.
but the movie gave a certain aesthetic that is actually really, it was replicated perfectly. I mean, they both do different things and the ending is a bit different, but the aesthetic and being on that island and just like that, the thunder and the lightning and just like everything being like just hectic, it captured that really well. I really like that one. I actually recently got the Barnes and Noble special edition of Jurassic Park that also has the Last World in it, and it's super gangster and it has like silver sprayed edges and it's super super nice. But yeah, I don't know. I really like Michael Crichton. I've read a couple, but not too many. Have you read any other Michael Crichton?
No, I
That was
added
your first?
after I finished Jurassic Park, I added the Lost World to my TBR too. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want
I
to do
hear it's
that.
not as good, but like if you like those kinds of stories, apparently it's a good continuation. If you like dinosaurs and shit, like why not?
Oh yeah,
But
growing up, like who didn't want dinosaurs? Like I would
yeah,
want a pet dinosaur. Like that'd be awesome. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so you like Jurassic Park. You like, I mean, you did a tier list for King. So like when you like a book and when you like a specific author, like how do you decide what to feature on your channel? Like how do you decide, oh, I like this book enough or there's enough for me to talk about? Because you could do a review if you hate a book. You just, if there's enough to talk about, how do you choose what to do on your channel when it comes to the book stuff? With music, I know you're bouncing around different songs and stuff and whatever, but in terms of the books, like how do you decide what to talk about?
for books, it's like
Yeah, I'm always curious.
it's pretty straightforward for me. I thought about doing, like talking about like a book that I disliked, but I'm kind of like an optimistic person, and I don't really like being a
Pretty
negative
positive vibes over
Nancy
there.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
for the books that I do love, the last one I did was Hidden Pictures. Phenomenal book. Like
yeah.
that was a Goodreads award winner last year for best horror. So,
Wow.
yeah, and like I saw this like it was like splattered all over Instagram, like people reading it, liking it, loving it. So I had to read it. So yeah, if I get that vibe, I read it. It's either a 4 or 5 star rating because like
Okay.
anything I rate on my channel, it's either 4 or 5 stars.
Right.
Um,
You
and
push
even
stuff
like
that you really enjoy,
and
right?
even with like the 4 or 5 stars, I will like I'll add briefly. I'll say, okay, this could have been, a little bit better here, or they could have like, cut this part out. But then I would say overall the book is, it's really good and I
Pretty
highly
decent.
recommend it. Because I like anything I put on my channel as of right now, because everything has been positive. I haven't had really anything negative, except for if you go to my tier list for Stephen King, I put like, I think there's like 3 Stephen King books I really didn't like, if I can name it. Like,
Right.
so the Tommy
They're not
Knockers.
perfect. Yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't love that one.
Yeah,
I
like I
never
don't
read that
like.
one.
I heard that like from like before because I had a friend and I'm about to read the Tommy Knockers. He's like, yeah, I heard bad vibes about that. I'm like, yeah, well, it started off great and like all these like, and I don't DNF a book. I can't do that. Like I
You
have
don't,
to. Like,
hey?
I have
Interesting.
I have to plow through it. Like
Even if it's terrible, like
oh, even if it's
even if it's
terrible. Like oh my gosh,
no, come on.
I wanted to like bash my head against the book. I read so
So you hate read it. You're just like, no, like I'm finishing
I
it.
have to
Doesn't
like, well,
matter.
because like, and I'm kind of curious too, because I'm like saying, all right, is it gonna like change pace, or is there gonna be like a
Yeah.
surprise ending? So
Yeah.
I still
Yeah.
have to like see if it is. And most of the time, they always start off great, and then sometimes it just drags
Something
during the
just
middle.
doesn't work. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so Josh Mallerman, he's like one of those authors. So he has Bird Box, Mallory, and those.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Both
Yeah.
of those, I love those. Like those two, I love. I love Bird Box and stuff. He wrote a book called Unburied Carol. I'm sorry, Josh, but granted he's not watching this, but terrible book.
Oh
Like
no.
awful. Like I'm like, oh my god. But it started off good. Like and like the synopsis too. Like that was like a synopsis that kind of like twisted like in turn like for
Oh
the worst.
really?
Like
Oh
yeah, and
no.
I was reading it and I was reading it in the morning at work. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like and luckily it was like I think 300 pages or something. But
So that's what I was gonna say is that you guys like I mean look, I don't make it a habit to DNF books, but I've given myself the the allowance to just if it's not working, and now I know my tastes even more than I did before. So now I know if it's not working, I kind of know why, and I know sooner than I used to. But you guys must be very careful with what you pick, because if you pick a 600-page book, you're like, I'm reading this. Like, it doesn't matter how bad it is. Like, I'm reading it. So you must be very. So do you pay attention to reviews and stuff like that, or do you, if a book sounds good and maybe someone's okay, what do you do if someone recommends a book to you and it's in your genre, and you read the synopsis and it sounds pretty cool, and then you go to Goodreads and it's got 3.25. What do you go, I don't trust it, or do you trust the person that recommended it to you, and do you try and figure out something that maybe those people didn't get? Like, does that make you want to read it more? Because sometimes I find a book that people like rave about and the rating is not that great, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's something else here that they're not seeing, right?
I will look on the average rating too, but I do look at the page count. So like in Goodreads, if I put it obviously on my my TBR and I'm about to get to it, I look at the page count. I'm one not to really want to read like less than like 250, 300. I don't like reading below that. So like like
you don't like short novellas and stuff that don't work for you.
So the shortest one I can remember right off the top of my head is actually the first book by Stephen King, Carrie.
Right, yeah.
So like the copy I read, it was like 260, 270. And, I mean, I love Carrie. It was a great book. Like, great way to start off and stuff, and the whole story behind I loved it.
Yeah, totally. But it's on the shorter side of what you would usually pick up, right?
Yeah, and so like if they we'll just take we'll go in the Stephen King Stephen King road. So like if they go on, like when I was reading Stephen King and I was looking to see the ratings, like obviously I was gonna read all of them anyways because I wanted to churn them all out.
Right.
So yeah, if I saw one with a bad rating, I'm like, all right, well, it's my favorite author. I'm gonna read it.
Buckle up.
I'm gonna read it, see how I feel, my own opinion, because everyone's opinion, is different.
Yeah.
Never gonna have the same opinion, and we're gonna like look at a book and read, characters differently. What the vibes we get from, certain scenes or like the setting and stuff. So, so with Stephen King, going back to my tier list, there's like 3 books I put on my hard to finish. That's the category I put hard to finish. The Tommyknockers, Insomnia, which is funny enough because the title.
Right.
And the Dreamcatcher, and then all these
I've heard
books,
that one as well.
All three books start off great, and it's weird because Stephen King's really good at doing that. Like he draws.
Yeah, they just lose their way, right? Like they lose their way a bit, and you're like, and he does this thing where like sometimes the latter half of a book is like not the same vibe at all as the beginning part of the book. Like it's just completely different. So yeah, I can see that being so. Okay, you pick up you pick up The Stand, you pick up 11/22/63, and you're like, if this sucks, like I'm reading 1,100 pages, I don't give a shit. Like you're just gonna plow through it. I respect that, man. I respect that.
Well, especially with King, and I would do this with like another author too, because if I have the book, I'm like, I'm gonna dive in because I said if it's gonna change, especially with King. So like, their author, I'm like, I gotta give him respect too, because like he's like a genius to writing. Like been writing for all these years. Obviously he's one of the most famous authors people know. Like if you say Stephen King and someone who doesn't even read a book in their life,
he's that guy for sure. So do you read a lot of fantasy then? Because I know you don't read huge chunky books unless they're some of your favorite authors, but do you read a lot of fantasy? Do you read sci-fi? Am I wrong in assuming you're mostly horror and thriller? Or
you're correct. Like again, horror is like
your bread and
90
butter, right?
to some percent of what I read, and you can throw like thriller in there too, because it's like because you have that horror aspect to it, and then you got thriller elements, dabbled into it somewhere. The last actual fantasy book I read, a chunker, was Empire of the Vampire. And
that's right, you did read that.
Yeah, I did.
And so, going back, what else have you read that is fantasy that a lot of people would know? Like, do you go way back into the classic stuff, or have you read much modern fantasy as well?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to think about right now. Majority of it obviously has been horror, but like for the fantasy, again, Empire of the Vampire, I love. Like I'm a huge vampire lover. I love vampires.
Okay.
I'm a nerd. If I could be a vampire, I would fucking be a vampire. Like
I probably would too. I can see how that book blends the genres to where like it overlaps with a lot of the stuff that you like. I can see that.
Absolutely.
What did you think about his writing? Because some people don't like it. Some people do. I read Nevernight, which is his trilogy that he wrote before that. And I liked it, but I can see the criticism of it being a little bit like too much sometimes for people. Did you have a good time with it?
Yeah, Christoph was like really interesting to read. I know obviously this is my only book I've read by him, but I kept that like whole premise in my head of like vampires, like, and like the scenes and stuff, and like he used really good imagery too. There's parts in it and stuff.
Yeah, he's very good for
and
sure.
he's got like
Yeah.
the book I have too, and it's obviously the copy. Like they have like, you know, sketch drawings in it and stuff, so it gives you that like that visual aid.
Yeah.
And like I'm a visual learner. Like if I can see it and that helps me learn. Yeah, so I read that, and yeah, that was a chunker too, and I plowed through that in like 3 days. No, 3 days, 3 or 4.
Wow, that's awesome. Did you do a little bit of audio as well? Do you do a lot of audio? Like, how do you read the most? Do you do audio, physical? Do you do ebook?
I do mainly. I love physical. There've been a couple ebooks I've read, not recently, but majority of it, it's like 99% time it's a hardcover or not hardcover, just, you know, physical
like
copy.
Hard copy, yeah.
I love it because like I'm the one, like I love the crisp pages, you know, the smell of the pages, like it's
like
good.
seeing your progress and stuff. I'm a
I love it. I love
putting
the bookmark in, and then if you check, you know, where it is, and you just put it right there, and like
it's so weird. Like I'll literally take out a hard copy, and then like I'll pick up like an ebook for a couple days, and I'll go back to my hard copy on the shelf, and I'll like put the bookmark in because it's on my table, and I just like to keep track of it. Even though I'm reading the ebook, or even if I'm reading the audiobook, I kind of just like to see my progress. So if I have the physical, I'll pull it out and I'll go along with it as I read it. So yeah.
So can you read multiple books at a time?
I can. In fact, I'm reading 3 right now.
I can't do that.
And one I've kind of put on the back burner just for a bit because I want to finish one of the other ones. Usually it's 2, and the reason why I do 2 is I started reading 1 and then an audiobook, and that's kind of how it started. So I needed something else that was audio so that when I wasn't reading that book, I'm still reading. Now it doesn't matter if I have that same book in physical, ebook, and audiobook. I'm still going to just choose 2 at the same time. So I'll bounce between 2 audiobooks. I'll bounce between whatever. And if I have the itch, and if the genres are different enough, and if I feel smart that day and I can keep track of stuff, I'll pick up a 3rd one, because why not? But they've got to be different. They have to have different tones, different authorial voices. Like I have to be able to really separate them in my mind. So right now I'm reading the first Chronicles of Druss the Legend, which is a prequel. It's the 6th published book in the Draenei series by David Gemmell, because I loved Legend. I thought it was awesome, and I wanted more Druss because he's a really cool character. So I picked up this prequel that's giving me those vibes, and I'm enjoying it. But then I'm also reading this random book. I think you liked that post. It was Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah.
That my friend Madison, who's a great booktuber as well, recommended. She's like, hey, have you ever heard of this? And I'm like the premise sounded weird. It's basically a lit RPG. Mm-hmm. And it's a progression fantasy where you literally like level up, and it's weird because he's basically, the world ends, it's this apocalypse, you don't get too much info. He goes underground into these dungeons, and he finds out that he's on this like survival game show hosted by like these aliens that have basically, like, Earth is just one of the many, many worlds that they've annihilated and basically raped and pillaged for their minerals and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that whoever's left is forced to run through these dungeons and basically survive. And so he's literally like in a game. So he's getting like XP, and he's getting loot. And he has his companion who's his ex-girlfriend's cat that he's stuck with. And her name is Princess Donut. And she ends up being able to talk. And that's as much as I'll give you, because that's basically on the front cover. You could pretty much derive
I know.
that.
I just looked at the cover. I'm like, that's hilarious.
But it's crazy because it's got like 9 or 10,000 reviews or ratings, and it has like a 4.6 or 7 or something. Like it's highly rated. And so I wanted to dip my toes into something like progression fantasy, something fun. And with that book, I get Harry Dresden vibes. I get, the audiobook is phenomenal. I would have bet you $1 million that this audiobook was performed by like 6 different people, and it's not. It's one dude. I was shocked. Like, I couldn't believe it. So that, as a fun palate cleanser, just a good time, don't really need to pay too much attention, audiobook is kind of what I have. And then I was very excited to continue with the Greenbone saga, which is Jade City, Jade Ward, Jade Legacy. I'm on the last book. So I cracked it open, and I'm like a couple chapters in. So I got 3 books going. One is classic 1980s sword and sorcery fantasy. One is very modern progression video game type fun fantasy with just like swearing and like jokes, and it's just hilarious. And then I got one that is like serious adult urban fantasy with some magic and kind of mafia family vibes and stuff. So like they're very different. And I actually have the audio on all of them because they're either on Audible or Scribd, and I have a subscription to both. So I can kind of pretty much find the audio for all of them. So it depends, like whatever I'm in the mood for. And I'm doing a mood read May, and I know you're not a mood reader, but I've given myself authority this month to read whatever I want, whenever I want.
Yeah.
And within that, like even like depending on the day or the hour, depending on what I'm doing, I'll pick up any one of those 3 books right currently, right? Obviously I'm going to finish one like later tonight and then pick up a new one. But yeah, I like to mood read like I think that's why I've determined that I'm a mood reader and I've embraced it.
Yeah.
And so even within the books I have going, I like to be able to pick something random. I don't want to, if I feel like reading, I don't want to know that I have to pick that book. I want to be able to choose something different, right? So I usually have 2 or 3. And that's my long ass answer for that question.
No, I totally respect that. Or for anyone,
Not everyone can do it. Not everyone can do it. And not everyone gets the most enjoyment out of reading multiple. Some people, like I know my friend Rogers reads. He like specifically reads one book at a time. And I could be mistaken on that, but I think that's what he told me. He reads one book at a time because he gets the most enjoyment out of it that way. Start to finish, he's immersed, he's absorbed 3, 4, 5 days, whatever, a week, and then he's done and he's like absorbing that and can kind of continue. I like to, and I have, I love to just grab whatever. And I think I'm going to do more of that now. I like a little bit of structure, but then I like to bend the rules a little bit too. I don't know. That's how I roll. It is to my detriment sometimes. I will say that sometimes I'll go back to a book. Let's say I'm reading 2 books and I'm really enjoying that second one. I might pick that up a little bit more frequently, and then I get back to that first one. And had I continued, I may have enjoyed it more because I might forget a little bit. I might have to flip back and go, wait, like who's that guy again? Sometimes that happens. Not all the time. I typically try and keep things straight, but whatever.
So
as long as we're reading, I guess that's all that matters. Yeah.
So Theo, I got a question for you. Do you have what's like your favorite type of trope? Like,
oh man,
in a book where you're looking for it and like you want to find those either characters, the setting, or just the overall message or theme of it.
It's very interesting because I'm starting to get a better idea as I evolve as a reader and as I cognitively do this booktube thing. Like I'm starting to understand what I like and what I don't. So on the tropes, like I really like bands of people coming together. I like found family a lot, and I think that stems from me being a really lonely only child, probably. I had a lot of friends, but I like the big groups that are just like brothers in arms or this ragtag group of people that comes together. I like found family quite a bit. That's a fun trope. I also am kind of a sucker for the orphan boy goes on a quest to find this artifact or go solve this mystery or what. Like I kind of like that stuff. I do like the underdog story and the come from nothing trope or theme. On that note, I'm starting to understand that I really like the old grizzled kind of warrior character. I like there's a character, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a character in a series called The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. There's a character named Maquin, and his story arc is one of the best that I've ever read. He's a warrior and then things happen and he has to come back from basically nothing. And I just like those like resilient characters that just like continue to fight. And, I like that kind of stuff. That's a really good question.
No, yeah, because I know I tried doing some homework before I came on here.
Right. Mood read Lonesome Dove. So Lonesome Dove you've heard of Lonesome Dove probably. It's by Larry McMurtry, and it's a really fat, like 1,000-page like Western. And it's one of those books that people say is like their favorite book of all time, one of the best books they've ever read, but it's huge. And so I don't know if I could, like, that is something that I would mood read. I'd reach for it, but I reach for it and then I'm like, well, it's kind of big. I'd rather mood read 2 or 3 other books instead of like, what if I don't like it? It's a Western. Everyone I know, Michael included, who's picked it up, is like amazing. Like, do it. Have you ever read that one? Or have you seen the movie or whatever? I think there was a movie or a movie
I've heard of it. When you mentioned Western, literally the only Western I've read is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King.
Right. Cool.
So yeah, cool. Anything with that. And that was really interesting too, to like bring in. Hi, Hannah. Yeah, just to get that little, because I knew like going into reading Stephen King,
Yeah.
I knew about the Dark Tower series. I'm like, all right, so let's
That's
see.
on my list, Cal. That's I think next year is going to be the year of Dark Tower for me. I definitely want to get through it. I have a friend that reads mostly King, and he doesn't read too much outside of there, but he read the Dark Tower, and the Dark Tower, like, he's like a reader because of the Dark Tower, and he loves it.
I read The Gunslinger. It's the first book in the series. I read that less than a day. So like,
yeah, and I hear it gets better and better. Right?
Yeah, my favorite book in the series is book 3, The Wastelands. And
gotcha. Okay,
it's got a badass cover of this train. It's got like a skull face on it, and
I can imagine it. Yeah, I've seen it
so
for
cool.
sure.
And then then this like book 2 and book 3 are really good, like because you really get like introduced to the characters, and like you like emphasize like you want like these characters to do good all throughout the book. Like
yeah,
like you're very like empathetic for them, and like you like you want to, like cheer them on and stuff, and like it's a hell of a journey. And
I hear it's crazy. I hear it's nuts.
And book 4, I could be mistaken. Book 4 or book 5 is like a backstory. And
yeah, I think it's book 4, like you said, 4 or 5, because people were waiting for that one, and then they get like a flashback, and some people didn't like that. But if you're able to binge them, I think it's fine, right?
And it's pretty interesting because when he did Wizard and Glass, I was really because I wasn't expecting the backstory. But then when I came back though, I'm like, this is kind of told pretty well. Like again, I know it's Stephen King, and like the chunkers he writes, it's all about like hit or miss, and like you're either gonna ride it all the way to the end like I do, and then no, it was like an interesting backstory. And then
cool.
Then he added after he had finished the final book, the Dark Tower book, he wrote later on, which is called The Wind Through the Keyhole, and The Wind Through the Keyhole actually plays. Where's that at? It's actually right after Wizard and Glass.
Nice.
So he wrote that after like the series was done. So like it was kind of like I don't think that's a backstory. I think it's just like some kind of other story too.
So Wizard and Glass is which number? Because I've heard that one talked about a lot.
4.
Okay. 4. Interesting. I hear a lot of praise. Next year I'm going to read Dark Tower for sure. Like I have to. Yeah, I have to. I wonder if I'm going to buy it.
Because like I said, I've heard and I've seen a lot of people do book reviews on it and people's channels, and it's amazing just to hear people's reaction to it. And it's definitely a total different side of Stephen King.
Yeah.
It's got the Western vibe, but you got the horror elements of it too, because obviously he's like the king of horror. So he's gonna
apparently he does a lot of shit in that series, and I think that's why it might work for me, because I'm not one to really like weird books too much, but I like when genres are blurred a little bit and mixed. So I kind of like that. But I wanted to go back to your question, because it was a really good question, and I was curious for you and your genres, because you don't read a ton of fantasy. I'd be curious what tropes, what themes, what types of characters you like in your books, and to what extent did that influence your own book?
So I mentioned earlier, I'm a big vampire lover. Like anything with vampires.
You like the gothic, the monsters, like that kind of stuff?
I love the like old Victorian houses, like
totally
creepy.
I was rewatching Buffy for fun actually with my wife, and then we ended up watching the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, like the original, the first movie. Super campy and kind of like ridiculous, but like we had a blast. So I like shit like that too.
Absolutely. No, vampires, gothic horror is like my favorite.
Yeah.
And I love, and like going back to you too, like you're talking about like journeys and stuff and quests.
Yeah.
So like, the Dark Tower, that is a quest. And like,
okay, cool.
It's
right.
really
the quest for the Dark Tower, right?
Yeah. It's amazing. And I really like relating to characters, and obviously if they're not supernatural characters, but like characters who are written well. So it's an interesting trope to kind of like, pick apart, but like certain characters are written just phenomenally, or then some characters are like, they're not put enough effort into it. And like, I'm like, well, that kind of stinks. And that might make
so you need like fleshed out, compelling, like real relatable characters, right? Which is difficult in shorter books. I know a lot of horror books, a lot of thrillers, you get 253, 400, 500 pages sometimes. usually they're 350 to 450 pages. It's kind of hard to do in that amount of time, right? And definitely if you don't have a series. So it's really special when an author is able to give you that in a standalone like horror book,
Yeah,
right?
and
It's hard to find.
no, it really is. And like just thinking about characters you can relate to, because I try to always think about that as I'm reading. Like, can I relate to this character?
Yeah.
And as I'm reading through, so like with Kill Creek right now, when I'm reading, just being a self-published author, and it's talking about authors and like the horror elements of it, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, you know what, this is a pretty interesting character, and like, and going with Audible too, because you have the narrator who will, you know, fluctuate their voice for changing characters. I love that. Like, that really helps me get into like the dive in of like the overall, you know, theme. And
when it's done well, it elevates the whole experience for me. It's crazy. I've gotten into audiobooks more lately than I ever have before. Just with some performances are just incredible. I was talking about the Dungeon Crawler Carl books. I mean, it's like a whole movie this guy is doing by himself in a sound booth. It's amazing. But I do want to take a pause. I want to make sure. Okay, did you find his channel? On my phone is tiny, couldn't see it on screen. It's called Cover to Cover Cal is his channel. And if you search Cover to Cover Cal and like search Cover to Cover Cal like Stephen King tier list, and you're gonna get the best of the best, I promise. So you'll find it.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's so going back to, you know, the tropes with my book.
Yeah.
So thinking about that too, and if you can see the cover, like
it's a cool cover by the way too.
So
it gives the vibes for sure.
Yeah, so that's like that creepy type of house like I love, and like that's what I was visualizing as I was writing this. And even when I wrote like,
is it the same? It's a similar house to the one on, is it Holly?
Yeah, no,
I saw that. You'll get to that. Yeah, I was like, what the hell? I've seen this.
I know,
before.
like, God damn it, Stephen King copying.
Yeah.
So
same vibe.
Finding this image. So I actually found this image and I gave it to my graphic designer to make it into the cover. So what I needed to do is I needed to find an image, but I needed to pay like a royalty fee.
Yeah, like a license or whatever, right?
So I didn't get like sued. So I can use it. Like the best $12 I've ever spent. Like,
yeah, man.
Finding this image, I'm like, this is like, you had no idea how hard I searched. I'm like, I gotta find, and I'm trying to find like a good one that's got like a good like amount of like, not color to it, but it's not like all dark and like you can see like specifics. Like Holly's great too, because like he's got the light on the window and stuff.
I love it. Yeah, no, it gives off the right vibes. Yeah,
that would have been awesome. But yeah, with Holly, I like looking at my book and I'm like, I would talk to Kelly about this too. I'm like, what the hell? Like, and I always had this like thinking like, what if Stephen King could like just read my book? I don't even care if he like hated it. Like if he could just read it, like, and just meeting him too, it's still a dream of mine on my bucket list.
If you had a chance to meet Stephen King, you get to meet Stephen King, and you get to ask him like 2 questions. What do you ask?
That's a good question. Not like the random ones, or not the random ones, but not
like the typical, ones. Right? Yeah.
Like what influenced you in writing, or
yeah.
Like, and I see people on Instagram like they're always taking pictures in front of his house. Like
he doesn't even live there anymore, I don't think, right? But he's got the gothic shit on the fences.
This is the gothic house.
It's in Maine, right?
Yeah, and I thought about that too. And like people will probably say like, what scares you? And like he's already like addressed all that stuff. Like I really would have to like read it.
That's a tough one.
I would think about it like I'd probably ask him what I would do like when I was walking. Or also too, I might ask him not even a book related question, because he actually plays guitar. And
he's very musical.
I play guitar too, and I'd probably ask him just about like that, like when he started playing guitar, or
cool,
like on his walks, like what does he even think about when it's not like writing and stuff. So like I'm not trying to be like that type of fan. And like again, the fans who meet him, they're probably like, oh my gosh, it's Stephen King, and like inside I'm like that, but I'm like, you know, I want to be professional, and I just want to like I got a picture with him, like I could die happy man. I could die the next day. Like
that'd be awesome. So on the topic of writing, do you have any writing ritual? You mentioned you like to get up in the morning, have a smoothie, kind of sit down. You gave yourself that headspace to sit down and sounds like you are disciplined and structured. You've shown that with your writing already, but do you have anything that you do? Do you have any like what are they called? Like any like weird things that you do, anything that you think like helps the process, any like idiosyncrasies that you adhere to?
So really interesting about writing
Or is
was
it boring? You just wake up and you write and then go to bed. Like,
no, like so I wrote an outline, not like so
okay,
like
okay.
if you go in school, you know how you have to make outlines for essays. It wasn't that like
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
An outline, you got the rising action, you got the climax, falling action,
Yeah,
stuff like
okay.
that. So like the big chunky parts of the book. So I can get that. So now I know what the big parts are, and then I just filled it in with that. But funny thing is, when I started writing mine, I think it was either shortly after I started writing or maybe a week or so. I was actually reading Stephen King's On Writing memoir. So
Brilliant book. Brilliant book. His audiobook is pretty good. He actually narrates that one and it doesn't suck. So
and
good.
I was just gonna say that too. And like it was awesome to hear him because he talked about not only like his writing style and like page count, word count, words to use, like verbs and like all that stuff. We talked about his childhood, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it was a really good book. Yeah.
And in my book, it's a lot of people who have read this, and we'll talk about this too. The people who have read it, because like I've just been so emotional for like people who love my book. It's like it's
it must
crazy.
be a crazy feeling. Yeah.
It is like so like writing this and stuff, and as I was reading his memoir, I was thinking like, okay, so how can I add this to mine? Like trying to like branch off it, like word count or like using and like that's the great thing too is like all the Stephen King books I've read, and not even just Stephen King, but all the books I've read, it helped me like develop sentences better and like characters. So my characters, like I wanted, and I wrote down the characters, and like that was probably the big part about my outline was writing the characters, who they were, what part of the story do they play in, and that was like the big part, bigger than the actual overall story of it.
Right.
And when I dove into my book, writing it and starting obviously with the prologue, I was trying to find a way to find something. So what I would do is, this is like part of the ritual, before I started writing, I would just close my eyes, take deep breaths, therapeutic breathing and stuff. So for those who don't know, I'm a health and phys ed teacher too. So like, I teach my kiddos to do that.
It's not weird for you to meditate, right?
Yeah. So
got it.
I'm trying to like, get in a sense of, writing and I actually, my ritual too is actually listening to instrumental while I write.
That's right. You mentioned that. Yeah, that helped you a lot. You said you write typically, or do you read on the couch? Like, do you have a specific place in the house that you like to read? Do you ever write at a coffee shop? Do you ever write in an office, in a different room? Do you ever go to a library? Like, where do you get the most productivity, both reading and writing? I'm curious if those are the same or different.
Okay, so reading, it's in my office at work.
Okay.
And I have like a sectional, so I call it my throne. It like sticks out more. So
cool.
I read there because like I'm 6'2", so I'm not super.
I'm
tall,
6'3", so I get it. I understand. I get it.
So we're tall, so we have to have. So on my sectional, and then that's for reading. And when I'm at my dad's too, I read because I go and visit family because I live like an hour. I'm really close to my family. I got my brother, but like because growing up, my brother's from my dad and my stepmom, but with my mom, she had 5 kids total. She had 4 girls and me. So
wow,
4 sisters. So
wow, cool.
Which I give a lot of credit to who I am today because of that. If I grew up with 4 brothers, I would probably be a total dick. I'm just being honest.
I grew up by myself, and I'm turned out kind of weird too. So I get it. I totally get it.
So with writing, writing was on my throne. I never wrote at work. That's when I was always reading.
I love the throne. Yeah.
I was always reading. So yeah, on my sectional, if I'm at my dad's, I'd write at. We have the TV room, and there's this table and stuff. I'd write there and stuff. Those 2 parts mainly. I thought about trying like either a coffee house or like a library because I love going to libraries. Like I just love going through the.
I do too. When I was studying for my post-grad stuff, I was doing a ton of library time, and actually I love reading is a little bit tougher because I like to get kind of immersed and I need a little bit more quiet. But if I was doing some homework or if I was writing something, I think a coffee shop would be my jam for sure. but then
Yeah,
it
there's
gets
actually
expensive.
there's a coffee shop actually in my the town of my dad where he lives, because he only lives like an hour away from me, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's called the Bean.
Okay, perfect.
Well, it's pretty interesting.
That works.
Yeah, he goes there all the time. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, writing was just mainly in the privacy of my home, or when I go to visit my dad. It was just, yeah,
Cool.
put my AirPods in and just go to
I'm
work.
still shocked you managed to do that, man. Like I remember you posting like every day, like, oh, I did a chapter, and next couple, like, oh, I did another chapter. I'm like, this guy must have had this idea. How long did you have this idea in your? Because I know you've wanted to write for a long time, but how long did you have this story in your head?
It was like, so pieces of it. It wasn't a full story, but pieces
Okay,
of it.
okay, I've heard
It
that
started off with
before.
like, yeah, it started off with a piece. Like, it was like,
Yeah,
okay, I want to do this, and it probably started. Okay, so I wrote last summer, prior to the new year, prior to the start of the new year. Because I think I was done. Yeah, I'd been done reading King. So I was reading other stuff,
yeah,
but yeah. So the beginning of the 2022, yeah, 2022, beginning of the
okay,
year, I was like, and I was seeing like just booktube channels and people of self-publishing, and I actually did a lot of homework, YouTubing, self-publishing, what's better, traditional or
yeah,
self-publishing, pros
yeah,
and cons, all that stuff. Like, I was just really trying to dive in, like, okay, how can I do this? And then once I found
yeah.
out that, I'm like, all right, well, like, and I
Let's
wasn't
do it.
I wasn't putting off to the side, because again, during the school year, when we're working, we're busy, so like,
Yeah,
I wasn't trying to, like, trying to start writing while I'm doing work, because I'm like, I've been like so tired, just because I was so tired over the summer because of writing.
yeah, yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make this a goal. So by it was late in the spring. So like May, late April, May, I'm like, you know what? Once spring break or once summer break comes, I'm just gonna sit down, I'm gonna write it out. And I started writing the outline obviously before it, but
Yeah.
probably even just a couple weeks before I started writing it. So jotted down
It's
an
crazy.
outline, yeah, jotted down the characters, and then yeah, I just started going to work. And it was just amazing when I was uploading all that stuff on Instagram, the page count and all that. Oh, I didn't even finish talking about the page count.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And see,
That's right.
we go off to the side
That's right.
stories, and we keep forgetting. Well, I might as well talk about that while I still
Yeah,
have it
go
in
for it.
memory. So the page count, Word document. So as like when I was finished, all said and done, I even posted it on my Instagram. It was like 311 pages, something like that, like
Okay.
150,000 words, something like that, roughly. And so when I was, long story short, when I uploaded it to KDP, and it was, I don't know, because when it got formatted, it had to get formatted different with the page and the spine and all that.
Right, right.
Well, funny enough, when I did the trim size of the pages, because my book is 5.25 by 8, I believe.
Okay.
So, fairly decent size especially for a paperback.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I like them.
so when I had to do the trim size in KDP, what I did in Word was an 8 by 10 document.
Uh-huh.
So when I trim sized it, it just skyrocketed the
Blew up.
pages to like half of it. So 311 or whatever
Oh,
turned
yeah.
to 600 plus. I'm like, holy crap. And the funny
That's
thing
crazy.
about that was, I'm like, you know what? It did feel like I wrote more than 311 pages.
Yeah, in your mind, you're writing a 300 and something page thriller novel or like horror novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it's like 600 pages.
And
That
it's funny
would blow me away
because,
too.
like I said, like I told you, 6 to 10 pages. That was my, I wanted that to be like a good chapter. Because like with chapters, I don't like them too quick, and I don't like them long drawn out. Stephen King has a
Agreed.
couple of those too.
Agreed. Agreed.
So I'm trying to like get like 6, 10 pages. I'm like, that's a good. And then with the book size, I'm like 304 pages. Like, that's a solid book. Like, it's not too short, not too long.
Yep.
So I feel like people would like to pick it up. And yeah, when the page page count just skyrocketed, and I'm like, well, I mean, because like I was writing it, and when I was writing it and typing it out, again, it's 8 by 11. So I'm like trying to do 6 to 10 pages by 8 by 11. And that's like, a lot. And it's not double spaced. It's like 1.15 spacing.
Wow. So if you were to do this again, would you plan, kind of backwards and go, okay, what's the size of my book going to be? What's the size of my writing need to be? And then kind of like budget from there, right?
Yeah.
Did you
So
go backwards this time?
first thing I would do was change the trim size in the document before I start writing. So I
Right
know
in the
how many
same size. Yeah.
pages.
Gotcha.
And so the funny thing about my book, without getting any spoiler alerts, and I didn't plan on writing it this way. It just came out that way with my because I was like, I just started going and I was going with the flow. And once I finished, I think it was either Kelly, my editor, my friend, or maybe so. I think it was Kelly. She said that I could make a sequel to my book. And it's, like I said, without giving it anything, there's something at the end. It's not like a big cliffhanger at all.
But it leaves a bit of an opening.
Yeah. And I wasn't trying to plan that, but then I think about that. And I just told her last time I was at her house, we were hanging out, we were playing cards. And I think it was last weekend or the weekend before. And I was talking about the idea. And I'm like, I want to write a sequel, but not right now because this book kicked my ass writing it.
Yeah.
And, but I have an idea in my head, and she's just like, jot it down. And I'm like, yeah, I jot it down somewhere.
Yeah. Any idea you have, you should write down for sure. Cause you never know what's going to work and what you're going to get back to and stuff. I mean, I'm not a writer, but man, I'd say throw all that shit down. Cause I think at some point you're going to get that itch again and you're going to find that time and you're going to be like, I think I got something for this. Yeah.
I have that itch too, Theo. Like I've ever since I finished it, it's like getting a tattoo. Like I have 11 tattoos. So granted, more people have more than that, but like once I have one,
I have 2. Yeah.
I want another one. But yeah, with the book, writing it, it's just like, but the turnout 600 plus pages. I'm like,
remind me how long it took you to write that. How long did it take you to write? Like pretty much, like from first to like draft.
Oh, okay, so all right. So writing the whole draft was beginning of June to mid-August. So,
it's pretty fast.
Yeah,
it's pretty fast. I don't know if I could do that.
No, and that's the thing too, because the cool thing about Stephen King is at the end of his books, I don't know if you've noticed this, but he writes his dates when he started to when he finished.
No, I didn't know that. Where? Like in the back cover or something, or in the where?
All right,
hang on a second. I got some Stephen King.
You got one? Okay. Get it.
Any of them?
I think it. If you can get it.
Like this guy.
All right. So look in the back pages. It should have it. It's like basically when the story ends, and he has the dates.
Okay. Checking this out. Let's see. I've never noticed that before. Okay, so I got the last page of text here.
I think I would just start from the back and keep going until.
I think it's all blank. I don't know if I have it. Oh, hang on. Sorry, that's different. Okay, I got about the author.
I think it's before that.
Oh, yeah, I got some acknowledgments. Okay. Here, I see it. Oh, yeah.
Right there.
This book was begun in Bangor, Maine on September 9th, 1981 and completed in Bangor, Maine on December 28th, 1985. So you know what? Now reading this, I remember reading this on 1 or 2 books, or maybe just it, to be honest with you. But I ended up finishing this one on, I think, ebook or something. So I remember, 11/22/63. Is it in that book? Because I think I remember reading it in one of them and thinking that was just, a quick little whatever. I didn't know he does that for most books.
I believe
that's
he does.
Pretty cool.
I believe he does it for all of his. I could be mistaken, but so I looked through all of it, and I have it online. I have 11/2.
That's cool.
I'm trying to get all of his books. I'm still in that, and my recent.
Hey Colin.
My recent.
Yeah, cool. Very cool.
Book, my book mail I got from a friend. Shout out to Autumn. She gave me The Outsider by Stephen King.
Nice.
I read that. That was a good book. That's actually I think it's on Hulu or Netflix. Yeah. It's a series.
Is it good? Is it worth checking out?
It's good. It's interesting because I don't know if you know who Jason Bateman is. He's a pretty acclaimed actor, and he's 100%. Actually in that. So that was interesting. He's actually in Ozark too, I believe.
I never continued with that series, but it was very good.
My brother started it, and I
like Jason Bateman. Yeah,
I like him too. I like him more. I think I like him more in his comedy. He's pretty funny in his comedy.
Me too. Yeah. Arrested Development. That was
I love
good times.
Yeah. That's got what's her name? Melissa. Was it? I always want to say McCartney or McCarthy. It's like
McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy.
He was in a movie. He was in a couple movies, and I think he was in a movie with Her? I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
think that's Identity Thief.
The next Stephen King book I'm going to read, I want to know if you've read this one because I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched that tier list, but Dolores Claiborne. That's the next one that I'm going to read. Now, I was going to read Gerald's Game or Dolores Claiborne. Would you choose one over the other? I've heard Gerald's Game isn't quite as good, and Dolores Claiborne is actually the better book for most fans. What do you think?
Yeah. So, and again, I guess it all depends on like when you read it, if like because you might get better vibes. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
personally, I liked Dolores Claiborne more.
Okay, that seems to be the sentiment among constant readers. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yo, I like the Outsider series. Yeah, it was good. It was very
I
interesting.
got to check it out. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, no, Dolores, like, and like you mentioned this too, I believe, on your channel when you were talking about the book because I watched the movie with Kathy Bates.
Yes,
And
apparently it's pretty good.
yeah, no, it is. It's really good. I mean, I love Misery way more, but like
Misery is
like
awesome.
this
Yeah,
is
that's
shit.
a classic.
Like-
It's one of my favorite movies probably because I remember watching it back in the day. It's one of the few movies in that genre because it had James Caan and Kathy Bates that I watched with my mom, and we just kind of bonded over that movie because we never used to watch like dark things together, but we watched that together, and I just have that memory of watching like a horror movie, quote unquote, with my mom.
So the first horror movie I watched by Stephen King was the It, the miniseries, 1990.
Yeah. I never watched that one. I only recently, after finishing it, watched the Skarsgård movies, like the new ones.
Those are amazing too. But I watched
fun.
the miniseries when I was like 4.
Oh, that's why you're so screwed up, hey?
Yeah. Thanks.
It makes sense now.
No, so like I don't know who the hell I was with, but like yeah, that scarred me. Like for those who've seen the miniseries, yeah, that scarred me from clowns. Like I still don't like them. Like I can tolerate them. I love reading them. I love reading them and watching movies about it. But if a clown comes up to me,
I gotta watch that.
I'm like, just please go away. Like
no birthday party clowns. You're done.
No, I'm good with that. No, because then because I get really into serial killers, and then you had John Wayne Gacy, that psychopath who dressed as a clown and down that dark road.
Tim Curry fucked a lot of kids up, man. Like I remember seeing scenes. I think I remember catching part of it because it was a mini series in 2 or 3 episodes. Like it wasn't that many episodes, and I remember it was on at someone's house, and I remember being like, oh, like this is that movie. And then I realized that who Tim Curry was. Someone had told me, and I was like, no way that's the guy. Mm-hmm. And I remember being so creeped out by the makeup and his portrayal in that brief glimpse that I got. I never ended up going back to watch it. I don't know. Apparently is there an ankle scene? Is that with Georgie at the sewer or whatever when he reaches out and grabs him maybe?
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything. Like they didn't have to watch. Okay. But I love Tim Curry is amazing in that. Like
he's
Kelly
so
and I,
good.
We talk about it all the time with Tim Curry being in because and I love Bill Skarsgård. Like he did an amazing job.
Oh yeah.
Like it's so much like obviously because it's a different era. It's just so much gore and blood and just horror and like I loved it. But Tim Curry, like the way he acted and like if you watch it back now, like I'm 30 and like just watching it now, just gonna be laughing at certain parts. It's hilarious. It's corny.
Totally.
And but it's awesome because
in the best way probably.
He plays such a scary clown and like he traumatized. Yeah, I did. He traumatized a lot of people and me being one of them. But it's interesting because I'd always saw, and I did this in a video of my top 5 Stephen King adaptations.
Okay.
And, Stephen King, It was number 1, and I talked about the differences between Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård and Tim Curry, he has such a way of acting, and it's tough because like if you see him now, because he had a stroke and stuff, and he just he's in a chair and he just looks like
it's totally different. Totally,
it sucks.
It's sad. Yeah,
he was so good, and like it just you related to it watching it, and like he brought fear into you, like
100%.
What Pennywise did for the children and stuff, and I loved it, and just. That's the thing with watching movies, and then with It, especially because I watched the movie multiple times before I even read the book. But I think I started reading the book in high school, and I don't know, maybe I did DNF that book. I don't know. I can't remember. But I think I started reading it, and then I didn't fully grasp it, obviously, because you're a high school student.
Right,
and
of course.
You don't really get the whole elements about it. But yeah, so watching the movie, as soon as I was reading the book, I'm like, I know who that is. I know who that is. Like,
Yeah.
I know where they are in Derry, Maine. Like, I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Misery is a really, like we said, really good adaptation. It's one of the best. What are your other not to spoil the rest of that video, but give me one other one that you loved.
Well, Misery was one of them, but I'll give you a different one. So it's called, so the movie I loved was Stand By Me, which is
the body
in different seasons, and that book is my favorite book of his novellas, like
collections.
I should say.
Yeah.
Collection of novellas, because he's got books of like short stories, which I like, because like Skeleton Crew was a good one of short stories, but like the book of novellas, different seasons, I love it, because he's got Rita Hayworth and Shawshank. Body, Apt Pupil, and The Breathing Method. So all
Apt Pupil, I want to read that one. And actually, that's one. So it reminds me, because if I don't have time to necessarily read, even Dolores Claiborne's a short book, but if I'm itching for some King, which I am, and I can't quite fit something in before maybe starting another read along, whatever, I'm going to probably, sorry, the phone's ringing. I'm probably, in fact, let me just go for 1 second. I'll be right back.
You're fine.
Pause. I'll be right back.
Pause. Yeah, no, and I'll say Tim Curry, like that face, multiple faces, and like I said, really good. I'm really interested to watch a lot of other Tim Curry movies because of that movie. So, still one of my favorite actors, especially for Pennywise the Clown.
Sorry, guys, I'm back. I had to let somebody in, and I'm probably going to leave for 2 more seconds. But I think so. My wife and I watched the It movies because I was reading the books, and she had never read the books, and she was really curious about them. And so I'm like, I wonder if she should read the book first and then watch the movies together. But I was like, I can't like wait to watch these movies. I have to watch them. So she watched them with me, and now she wants to read the book. Yeah. And actually she ended up picking up The Stand. So she's like halfway through The Stand right now, and she's enjoying it.
Is that her first Stephen King book?
No, she read 11/22/63 with me, and she really enjoyed it. And she read,
that's a TV series too.
Yeah, apparently that's pretty good. Apparently that's pretty good.
James
Franco. Yeah. And she started later, but never finished it. So she's getting into it. She also wanted to read Billy Summers because someone told her about it. So like, I don't know.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, it's cool. We're reading some stuff together. Yeah. Have you read Insomnia? He mentioned that one.
So Michael, I have read Insomnia, and I know that's a really cool thing to bring up too, because it does obviously a lot of
answer this while I go, and I'll be right back. I'm still going to listen to you. I'll be right back.
All right. Yeah. Stephen King, obviously, as you know, Michael, probably references a lot of Dark Tower elements, or he also, kind of, branches out and connects different characters, settings with his book. It's like his whole like realm of his novels, and it's really interesting to see too, because I read Insomnia, and I think I have to do a reread on Insomnia. I know I said it was hard to finish, and I recognize the little elements that they were having that related to the Dark Tower series too, and that's why I read Stephen King in chronological order, because if you read in chronological order, you get the whole like references to other settings, characters.
You get what you're supposed to get when you need to. Okay.
And it's gonna connect, like, and they always talk about like, did he do that on purpose? I'm like, you must have. Like, that's crazy the way he does it, because they'll add characters into other books and like just the setting, because there's always like Derry, Maine, Castle Rock, all those are like showing up and stuff, and it's really interesting to read. And I told Michael, as you can hear, like I have to read Insomnia again, like a reread, just because it was, like I said, I only had 3 on the list. I believe it was 3. So 3 out of like 80 plus books, almost 90 books of his novels.
Pretty good. How much would I have to pay you to read the Tommyknockers again?
And like I said, like
you'd suffer through it probably.
The beginning was great. Like I got the whole idea of the story. It was really good. But then once, and I don't want to give spoilers, but once like the scene happens, and people probably know if they read the Tommy
it gets weird.
it happens, and like I was following it, then I'm like, where the hell is this going? Like, and it's one of like, and I don't want to say disappointment because Stephen King's still a like phenomenal writer.
That's the thing, is a subpar, like not great Stephen King book is still better than like 70% of the books out there. You know what I mean? Like well, there are some that just don't land very well, but still a normal, not great Stephen King book is still going to be, I think, way above most. But yeah. They're supposed to be making a Salem's Lot adaptation.
Yeah, I heard about that too. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, I think I saw that on Instagram too because people were posting. And Michael, Salem's Lot is my favorite Stephen King book.
Salem's Lot is one that I want to reread, and I want to reread it before going into The Dark Tower, because I enjoyed it, but I think I missed some stuff because it didn't like blow me away. But I think, I don't know why. Like I really enjoyed, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. But when I look back at it, I don't think I have, because I don't think I'm able to tie it into anything. Right. And I know that it's not tied to anything, but there's some overlap and there's an important character, right? So I think I'm going to reread that one because I think I checked out a little bit in part of that.
So Ben Mears is the main protagonist in the story.
Yeah.
And like you follow him on this, obviously the journey, you know.
Yeah.
Called Jerusalem's Lot, Salem's Lot for short. No, great book. I love it.
Another writer protagonist.
Yeah, right. It's just, it's just
it does that a lot.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's just like talking about Stephen King is just amazing, and just branching out to different authors that are like Stephen King, and just like, because that's how I kind of got into Nick Cutter, and when I read The Troop, I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. And I did the book review on The Troop, and for those if you want to read The Troop, I recommend it. But if you have queasy stomachs, there's a couple.
There's some. The imagery is vivid, and he doesn't shy away. There's definitely some description there.
I love
Nick Cutter was good. And actually, I want to try another Nick Cutter book because I liked The Troop way more than I thought I would. Like way more.
I read 3 of it.
There's one about like a lake house or something by the lake. Am I getting Riley Sager mixed up? Probably.
Yeah, that's Riley Sager, I believe.
What other ones did you read?
So he has The Deep and Little Heaven.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
sounds right. Were they good as well? Or was The Troop like definitely the best one?
The Troop is the best, in my opinion. The Troop is the best. Out of those 3 books, I go with The Troop, The Deep, Little Heaven.
Okay.
And that's actually how I read them too, which is kind of funny. It's like
cool.
I read The Troop because I heard such great reviews about it, and then like The Deep, that sounded interesting because I read the synopsis of it. And then I'm like, well, I got Little Heaven, so let's read this. And
yeah. If you like mysteries, if you like thrillers, and if you like Stephen King, this one has a lot of good vibes. Like I think you'd really enjoy this one for sure.
I got a question, Theo.
Yeah.
What books? So I don't know how much you read as a kid or as a teen or an adolescent. What books did you love to read growing up? Because as a teacher, I've mentioned, I actually put this thing in our library in our school. Mr. Vance's top 5 books from his childhood. Yeah, so I put that in there too. I'll tell you my 5, or not 5. Okay. I'll tell you mine after you tell me yours. Okay.
So like what my favorite.
You can say favorite genre, if there's a series or just type of book.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read a lot as a kid, and then I didn't read for like a long time as a teenager. And that's when I would have read a ton, but I didn't. And I went back later to fill in some gaps. I did read, like when I was really young, I read Goosebumps. That was kind of like what I started reading. I remember like having designated reading time in elementary school and bringing my most recent Goosebumps book and like sitting down for an hour while we all read. And I remember fondly, my mom would take me, once every couple of weeks or whatever, to go buy like a new Goosebumps book, and it would be just a fun trip to the mall to go buy a book. And I really liked those ones. And then I got into a little bit more. I also read Narnia. I really enjoyed Narnia. It's been forever, and I don't even think I finished this, but I read like most of them, and I enjoyed those. I didn't read the Peter Jackson. No, is it Peter Jackson?
Is he?
Percy Jackson, thank you, Peter Jackson. I'm like, that guy's a director, pretty sure. Percy Jackson. And it's weird because I'm like this little Greek kid, and like I probably should enjoy that mythology and stuff, but I never read those, and that's one that I wish I had read. But yeah, and then I ended up reading some like Animorphs. Do you remember Animorphs?
I was just gonna say,
Bro.
I'm like, I know he's gonna say it. I'm just waiting for him to say
Bro,
it.
Animorphs was dope. And then the Fear Street by R.L. Stein, and then some of those books where like you could kind of choose your own ending,
Yeah.
which was a really cool thing. It's like, okay, if you want to do this, flip to page 72, and then blah blah blah. Those are really cool.
That's so interactive for a kid.
Yeah. And you know what I read a lot, and I actually had a set, and I wish I still had the set, was the Hardy Boys. I had a nice old Hardy Boys set. I loved those books. They were really cool. And then what else? And then I read Harry Potter, a couple years after it came out. I was in grade 7 or something, 6, when I got gifted it by my godfather, and I let it sit for a little while. And then eventually I picked it up and I was like, oh, damn, this is really cool. And then, and then throughout high school and stuff, I read like nonfiction and stuff and some biographies. And then I got more into the business side and more academia that I was reading. Took forever break from fiction. So that's kind of what I grew up reading, those books. Yeah.
Like a lot
some
of
comics.
Yeah. No, a lot of the same for me. Again, you mentioned Hardy Boys. I was on it.
Super
Chronicles
cool,
of Narnia for me.
Yep.
Goosebumps for sure. Animorphs, like that's 4 of the 5 on my list.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
100%.
lie. Like 4 of the 5. And then
formative
the other one
fiction
I loved was the Magic Treehouse books. So I was
okay.
a kid.
I never read those, and people revere those, and I never read those.
Yeah, no, they're great. Like
I wonder why.
Brother and sister, like they go on a journey, and like in this magic tree house, like just takes us on this little. I mean, I guess you can call it fantasy. I mean, in a way.
Yeah,
like,
So, is it like portal fantasy? Like they go into this other world or something? Kind of like Narnia. Yeah, cool.
So so I've read fantasy. I've read more fantasy in my childhood than my adulthood. We'll just say
there you go.
I've read my fantasy and stuff.
I'm curious. So we're at about an hour and a half. We're gonna call it pretty soon. But before we go, I'm curious. If I were to what books would you recommend to me? What is a book that you'd want me to try? Something that maybe is a little outside of my typical stuff, or very much in your wheelhouse that you think I should try that I probably haven't? Because I want to give you some fantasy recommendations that I think you'd really like, and whether you read them or not doesn't really matter. But I think I want to recommend a few that I think would hit a lot of the things you like in your books, but you might not have ever reached for yourself. You recommend something for me, I'll recommend something for you.
All right. It's funny enough, like right here, I have, so like when I did my Stephen King tier list, I literally had like my annotations while I was doing it. And,
perfect.
Like, it's just like chicken scratch, like
I love it.
All that stuff. So Stephen King, obviously, because I know you've read him. You're obviously getting into the Dark Tower series, so I don't gotta mention that.
But noted. So you recommend I should try that, because that's a hybrid of so many different genres, and people really like that one, especially fantasy readers. They vibe with that one, so I'll try it for sure.
I'll give you. Okay, so these are gonna be. I don't think they're gonna be hard to find, but so obviously Stephen King wrote under the pseudonym Richard Bachman.
Yes.
So,
right.
There's the Bachman books.
Yeah.
There's 7 in total, but like there's like a big old collab of 4 of them, I think, in one.
Okay.
And that's hard to find, but like if you can find the Bachman books, that's it.
I think I have them on ebook, so I do have them, but they're ebooks.
So my favorite,
good reminder.
My favorite Richard Bachman, because that's like 7 books right there you can just read. So that's like my suggestion. But my favorite Richard Bachman is The Long Walk.
I forgot that it was a Bachman book, because he wrote that when he was very young, right? Like 17 or something stupid. Like I'm going to take that away. I'm going to read The Long Walk.
And it's interesting because like when you're saying he's 17, like these kids are young in the book, like, and there's a lot of characters. I will say there's quite a few characters in it. But like I said, when I was mentioning, like, you want to relate to these characters, you want to, cheer them on, empathize with their needs and stuff. This book is like, it's a long walk, and it's this journey. It goes and like like you have shit that happens, like you wouldn't even expect that happens. Like it's Stephen
Yeah,
King, obviously, Richard
and that's
Bachman.
the thing. It's amazing how he's able to do this with just,
Anthony.
it's a book about people that just need to keep walking, basically, right? Like that's the premise. Like you need to
Yeah,
keep walking or
so
you
yeah,
die.
there's more to it, but I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, you can read the synopsis and you'll see it too more.
is it a novella or is it a full novel? A couple hundred pages?
Anthony, if you can think without this too,
Can Anthony opine?
it's like
Please?
I
It's a
can
full
remember
book,
it's
right?
at least 300. I would at least say
Okay.
that.
Because I'm thinking, man, I was in the mood for Dolores Claiborne. I might just take that and read The Long Walk as my next.
So yeah, if you had to ask me, what would you choose, Dolores Claiborne or The Long Walk? I choose The Long Walk all day.
Okay, perfect.
All day,
Perfect.
every day.
Anthony, Dolores Claiborne,
300.
or the Long Walk. It's up to Anthony now.
All right. So tiebreak.
So I before we go, I wanted to say, so I know that you've read Robert McCammon. So I would recommend more Robert McCammon. And the next one I'd recommend is Swan Song. Because there's another one called Boy's Life, which I'd like to read soon. But I think that would be a little more similar to your Gone South. Swan Song is a post-apocalyptic. It's very much The Stand. It's completely different. Speculative kind of horror fiction. I think you'd really like that one, and I think you'd get more Stephen King vibes out of that book than maybe the other two, to be honest. So I would urge you to try that one and continue with Robert McCammon, because I think if you're craving Stephen King and you've made your way through his stuff and you need like a Stephen King itch to scratch, try Robert McCammon.
I appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, Swan Song definitely on my TBR. You know what? Since you're gonna get right to when you gonna get to The Long Walk? Like I know
Maybe at the end, maybe
finished.
at the end of the month, man. I'm
Okay,
mood rating. I'm allowed. I'm an adult. I'm allowed to do whatever I want.
So
Okay.
we'll do this. So I know you're finishing up after Kill Creek, which it's like 400 pages, so I can get right through that in like 2 days. After that,
Anthony says Long Walk. Yeah.
I'm gonna get right to Swan Song. Put that.
Now let me prep you because it's not a small book. I got the better end of that one. It's like 800 something pages. But I will say, because I sometimes take my time with books, I'm not a super like speed reader. That book, as long as it was, flew by. Like not a page was wasted. The prose is magnificent. The pacing was like, there was always shit happening, and then the story builds and builds, and you're like, holy crap, like this is crazy. Characters are very good. They're compelling. They're memorable. There's a couple that are, you mentioned empathy. You know, some are morally gray, but most of them are clear bad and evil. It's kind of a theme in the book is evil kind of looking back at you, right?
Yeah.
And the evil in humanity and the potential hope and beauty that is in everybody, right? That's really what it's about. But they're memorable, and you really want to pull and like root for some of these guys, and they're just good. Like they're good. I was kind of shocked at how good the characters were, to be honest. He had a lot of pages to work with, so you know they should last in your mind, I think. But I had a blast. So I would suggest, if you've got the time, fit that in. If it takes you 2 months, whatever, like just fit it in, man. Yeah, and it doesn't really like fit in one season or another. Like it would work, man. Sometimes books to me clash seasonally, and they're like, oh, I don't want to read like a winter book in the on the beach, right?
Right. No.
But this one you can read whenever, man. It's just like boom, the world's done, things are not looking good, and people gotta make some decisions. And
the good thing about this summer is I'm not gonna spend the whole summer writing a book. So like that's what
yeah, exactly. You're free.
The whole summer churning out pages.
I love it.
Now this summer, you know, I'm gonna be doing some like side jobs and stuff over here.
Yeah.
No.
Cool.
Yeah.
You got time to read?
As soon as I'm done with Kill Creek, Theo, I'm gonna even send you a picture. So when I get the book,
I love it. We'll talk. We should talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. Like Theo, this was like, not gonna lie.
You know what? Maybe we'll do a follow up. We'll chat. We'll talk a little bit about Swan Song. We'll talk Long Walk, and we'll discuss them. That'd be really cool.
Dude, that sounds like a blast. Like I've had so much fun doing this, Theo. It's been great. I appreciate you having me on your channel. I've seen all the
man.
You had and stuff.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Your channel like has such a great success too. Like keep it up, man. You're doing great.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. On a parting note, I would also recommend, and I think I recommended it before, Blake Crouch. I think you'd really like him. And I'll recommend some other fantasy stuff another time too. I think you'd like John Gwynn. I think it's very fantasy, but there's
Yeah.
some battles, there's amazing characters, there's really good themes, there's really good tropes and stuff that he does really well. And if you want good characters and just slice of life, kind of like King does, but in a fantasy setting with really like compelling conspiracies and politics and just like family drama and all that stuff, I think Robin Hobb would be good. It's a little slow.
So yeah, so
If you like thrillers and fast stuff, maybe not. But
I've
if
gotten
you love characters,
yeah, I've gotten one book recommendation. I put that on my
yeah.
TBR. I think it was like the something Apprentice.
Yeah, Assassin's Apprentice. That's exactly what I was going to say. Assassin's
Yeah, so
Apprentice.
it's on my TBR. I'll get to it.
Yeah,
So
I think that makes sense for what you like. I think that would be really good. For
it's
sure.
interesting how we've connected just by doing this and talking.
Yeah,
Because like
yeah.
when we were just talking about books we read as a kid, like again, you named 4 of the 5 I wrote on my list.
Crazy,
so
right? If
it
you do a
is.
Venn diagram, like there's a lot of shit in the middle, man. So
No, there is.
that's
Like,
cool. That's
I
cool. And I
appreciate
love
it.
that it's different too. Like I'm going to come to you quite often now with the horror stuff because I want to read more of that. And I think we'll find a lot more to connect on in the future.
No,
I appreciate you joining me, man. Thanks. This was long overdue. One of the OGs that I started following right away. We kind of came up together, and I'm happy to know you. Greenbone Saga, he would like. The one that I'm finishing now, Jade Legacy, it's urban fantasy, it's mafia, it's family drama, it's political conspiracy. It's really cool magic attached to the mineral like jade. And when you wear it, certain people have this hereditary ability to harness power by wearing jade. Some people can't wear jade because it makes
Yeah.
them sick. Very, very cool. But it's very, if you like The Godfather and stuff, and if you like mafia type stuff, like
interesting.
very cool, but like
I'll,
Japanese and Asian inspired.
I'll add
Very
it to my
cool.
TBR. Like I said, I'm getting
Yeah,
books,
man.
just adding it. Like who
Yeah.
cares if my TBR list is like 1,000 books? Like it's
Mine
all
is,
right.
look, every time I do some of these, every time I watch a video, and that's why it's like you read 2 books and you add like 7 on your TBR, and it's just kind of like what happens. I'm
Yeah.
gonna live forever. I'll have time,
Yeah,
right?
we're still young.
Yeah, I haven't run out of room. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Anyway, man, any last things, man, before we wrap up? Again, thank you so much. Thanks everyone in the comments, and
Yeah.
we'll do this again at some point.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, everyone in the
Yeah, man.
comments. Again, it's been great because of reaching out. Because again, like I said, your channel's such a big success. It's always been great. Watching
Thanks.
your
It's
videos.
slow and steady, but we've got a good community, I think, both
Oh
of
yeah,
us. So
like
we're happy
what
for sure.
that's the thing too is like I know fantasy is, and this is my opinion. Fantasy is a lot
Yeah.
more popular than horror. I'm just saying that. Like,
Sure. Maybe
I
there's
feel
more
like
people there. Yeah,
yeah. And that's the thing too, like because like when people like have romance, because romance is like kicking
Crazy,
everyone out of
right?
the water apparently.
Crazy.
Oh yeah, it is. But with fantasy, yeah, and I'm gonna definitely, and I said that in a couple of my videos, like I want to dive more into fantasy. Like I love fantasy
Yeah.
too, and
Yeah.
you know,
Good, man. I love that. It's good to branch out a little bit. I'm going to find more time for all the stuff that I don't read a ton of. In fall, maybe we'll connect. We'll do kind of a Halloween thing. I want to get some recommendations from you for kind of a spooky season. I love that time of year. I love fall, and I know you got some good ones up your sleeve. So I'm gonna I'm gonna reach out at that time too.
Yeah, same goes for you
Cool.
for fantasy. I know you're like the one I'm gonna come to for fantasy, as I know
Sweet.
you know your stuff, and yeah, it's just it's great reading stuff, and then you reading
Absolutely,
into it
man.
to a different genre, and you're like, wow, this is actually some good stuff. Like, what have I been missing? Like,
I know. I love talking about it. I love connecting with people. You're one of the guys that I love to follow and chat with and stuff. So I appreciate you being here. I'm grateful you came on. And to everyone else, thank you so much. And that's it. We'll catch you guys on the next one. See you
see you
guys.
guys later.
Have a
Appreciate
good
it.
day.